Welcome to Money Hangout. Every week we talk about an important issue about investments or savings, and I try and answer as many questions that you send, and we help you learn mutual funds. This is brought to you by Birla Sun Life and Value Research. Today we are going to talk about something which is I have talked about it earlier, the first mover advantage, the rewards of starting early, and how you can why it is important. And I'll just give you an example and an illustration just to reinforce the idea. It looks too simple an idea, but the impact of that done over a period of time is so significant that you need to really take it to your heart. We often come across the rags to riches story, the people who founded their business, or somebody just ended up with something which came their way and they became wealthy. We are not talking about any of those. I'm not talking about founding a business. How can ordinary people build something substantial, be well off with their normal savings, and what is the secret of that, how you can do it? The doability and the simplicity of it is what matters. And this is how so two people graduated at the age of 25. The first person started investing 10,000 rupees from month one, first day, first month, first income, and continued doing that for 30 years. No increase in earnings, no increase in investments. He just continued doing that. He invested 36 lakh rupees over the next 30 years. His friend who passed out kept spending all the money for the first 15 years. And then to catch up with his friend, he started investing 20,000 rupees every month for the next 15 years. And he kept doing that for 15 years. Despite investing as much, twice as much, he was able to accumulate to about 80 lakh rupees. This is assuming the return that both investments earned. Both investments earned as much return, and only 10%. So with that, his accumulation was 80 lakh rupees. And in case of the other person who did it continually for 30 years, in investing same amount, 36 lakh rupees, that accumulated to about 2 crore. So this is the difference that you see. 20,000 rupee invested in the next 15 years accumulated to 80 lakhs, which is substantially less than 2 crore, which also earned 10% on the 10,000 rupee invested continually over the 30-year period. So the biggest differentiator is discipline, regularity, and time. Time is a very magical thing. It actually does the magic of compounding. It's often attributed to Einstein that I'm not sure if it's true, that he considered compounding as the eighth wonder of the world, and it really is. Money earning return, and the return earning return as well, and that compounds over a period. If you are able to double your money 3-4 years, the money that you accumulate, and so the money to really accumulate into something substantial, all it needs is its time and reasonable compounding pace. So this is something obvious, but why do people don't invest, and why do people not save? Many a times people save, and then the problem is that they don't invest. Their money doesn't work hard enough. That's one problem. But the primary problem is that people just don't save. In the initial years, it is understandable that you have just, it's simply the economic theory, or theory at which one can see that you have too many needs and too few resources, and you think that you cannot really defer your consumption right now or your spending right now. But I think in the early years of your early years of your career, if you don't do that in any manner, with even a very insignificant amount of your savings, if you're not able to save and invest, you don't fall in that habit. And once you are habitual, you become habitual about spending all that you earn, the process does not start. I keep getting complaint about, whenever I put a tweet about something about the retirement issues and the pension and the problems that we might encounter, or the next generation, that will say, will face, or how to really plan for income in your retirement or investing for your retirement. Many people complain that given the inflation, it is very hard for people to actually make ends meet. So how can they save? But my understanding is that it is not about your earning or your spending. It is more about habit, and even little bit, if not 10% of your earning, 5% to begin with, even in the tough times, even in the most difficult times. The habit of taking a small money out of your income first before you start spending it, that is crucial. And so I strongly believe that it is a matter of getting started. Once it gets demonstrated to you, and it will actually, none of my illustration will help, none of my hangout session will actually help you do that till you have done it yourself. Even if you don't get started with your SIP or anything, even if you are able to, if you find mutual funds cumbersome, do your recurring deposit. I don't think SIP is very difficult to get started with. Do it with 500 rupee if you are unable to allocate a large amount of money. And you will think that it is a trivial amount, but it is not a trivial amount, because the impact it will have on you once you see that you have saved 6,000 rupees a year, and once you keep doing it for 3 years and you see the compounding, and you will have that first 18,000 rupees worth of capital that would have appreciated to an extent, and that demonstration to you that here is a money which you didn't have. 500 rupees looked like a meaningless money, and this has translated into something. So your own action translating into something tangible for you, that is one which I think every saver should attempt. Every saver should do it with great sincerity. And this is for you, this is for your future. The definition of investment is postponed consumption. So you postpone a small consumption, not a large consumption, or not a large spending now, and see that money accumulate, and you will realize that the power of compounding will be demonstrated. This is the money that you can realize, and imagine what can happen when you keep doing it for 30-35 years. And those 30-35 years, your working years, are very important, because we are going to live longer given the breakthrough in medical science, and given that superior living conditions we have. Excuse me. These two things, we are going to live longer, and if we are going to retire at 60, 65, depends, we have to really provide for as many years we are going to live, as many years as we are going to work. So your working years have to provide for the years that you are going to live, and when you will not work, you will not have income. So only your investments, only your deferred consumption will be at work. So you have to really get very serious about it. It's important. It's not very difficult to get started, and self-demonstration is crucial. So get started with your SIP if you haven't started investing from now on with a small amount of money. It doesn't matter, and then you can devise your roadmap yourself.
Thank you, Dhiren. We'll now move to the questions for today.
Sure.
First up, Binay asks if it is a wise thing to add a joint holder to his folio rather than a nominee. And further on, he wants to know if there is a tax implication on the joint holder in case of redemption or a switch.
I'll answer the second question first, that there is absolutely no tax implication for the second holder if the first holder is disclosing it. Likewise, if you invest in the tax saving fund, the first holder only gets all the benefits, not the second holder. So for practical purposes, first holder is the beneficiary in that sense. Yes, for a certain situation, it will be meaningful. In fact, if you are careful about the joint holders of your investments, and opting for the nominee, you don't really have to worry about your will. You can make your wife as a joint holder of your investments and your children as a nominee. So just in case there is a need for somebody else to exercise the decisions, or exercise the option of realizing those investments, it's very much possible, and that will make it easier.
Next up, Mr. Chakrabarti asks if a ratings upgrade of a fund to 4 star is indicative of a further movement towards 5 stars. So he wants to know, is this kind of an approach similar to picking a fund which can be an early bird investment?
Maybe, maybe not, but I would not like to get into the mathematics and science of these ratings, because these ratings, there are too many moving parts. A fund has to do well, and a fund has to do well relative to other funds in the same category. And if the fund is able to improve its performance relative to other funds in the same category, the rating upgrade happens. But a rating upgrade happens from a 3 star to 4 star may not be indicative of that fund actually getting upgraded to 5 star. There is a possibility, if the fund continues its good work, if the fund is able to further improve its performance. Just improvement in performance will not translate into rating upgrade. The improvement in performance relative to other funds of the same category and with less volatility, with less declines in the interim, will translate into a rating upgrade. So I would not like to guess that, I would not like to guess that a fund which has got upgraded from 3 star to 4 star is likely to become a 5 star. Maybe, maybe not. But I think the way I use my rating is that the rating system helps me eliminate the duds. I don't consider the 1 star and 2 star funds. 3 star, and if I have invested in a 5 star or a 4 star fund, it slips to 3 star fund, I start asking a lot of questions about the fund. It it forces me to think about those things. And my investable universe is 5 star and 4 star funds. If a fund slips from a 4 star to a 3 star fund, I'm cautious. I keep watching it, and depending on the the fund manager, how experienced he has been. If there is a fund manager who has been managing a great fund for last 10-15 years, even a fund getting downgraded to 3 star, I'll be allowing it some more time. I'll be allowing it a long time, maybe 2.5 years. If there's a relatively new fund manager and the fund slips to 3 star, I'll still allow it 6 months to 12 months, because the rating is nothing but a very clear quantitative measure of relative underperformance of or relative performance of funds in their respective category.
Next up, Ombir asks, how are ULIPs as an investment?
ULIPs are, first you should understand that ULIPs are nothing but insurance combined with investment, and mixing insurance and investment is not a good idea. It's not a good idea for two reasons. One is that our need for insurance is more important. Insurance should be looked upon as a spending, as a money spent for buying protection for your family. The moment you have dependents and financial dependents, your need for insurance is large, and it is, I would say that if you have 500 rupee of spare money, and if you have to choose between investing that money and buying an insurance, I would say that buy that insurance, because buying protection for dependents is important than actually preparing for the future. And our need for insurance changes dramatically. If most of us start our career and we have no dependents, you don't need insurance. The moment you get married, and if your wife is going to be financially dependent on your income, then your need for large insurance is understandable. So you need to buy the insurance. If your wife is unlikely to be financially independent, then you don't need it. The moment you have children, you need to worry about that insurance. So all these big needs for insurance can be only fulfilled by a term insurance. So buy term insurance and try and estimate and do a liberal estimate of your insurance needs. Why you should not mix insurance with investment is because you don't get best of either. As I said, that your need for insurance is important, and you need large insurance coverage mostly, and for that you need to pay a very small amount of premium, and at a young age it is even lower. So those needs are better fulfilled by term insurance. When it comes to ULIP, only 10% of the money that you give generally goes towards insurance. The rest of the money is invested. Rest of the money is invested and it is not very transparent. It is not as liquid. If the fund is not doing very well, you can't really move your money around. So going by the performance, the liquidity, and the mix of two, objectively able to decide that your investment is not doing well, your ability to move your money around is difficult. So don't mix insurance and investment. ULIP is not a great investment idea.
So on a related note, Dhiren, Abhijit asks, should he surrender his ULIPs even at a loss and invest the sum realized in mutual funds? And he says that one of his ULIPs is doing rather well.
He should evaluate that, and he should, depends what is the residual time frame. As ULIPs get very old, they may not be as taxing, or even if they are taxing, it doesn't matter, because you have actually you have already taken the brunt of the initial year expenses, because the way ULIPs are structured, initial year expenses are higher than the subsequent years. So if you have been investing and are through with, if it's a excuse me, if it's a 15-year term ULIP and you are done with, or if you're through with 10-12 years, it is worth considering. It is worth but it depends. Look at the surrender charges. Look at the surrender charges and what is the realizability of that. You also have to worry about the tax consideration in terms of the money that you take out, and if you have taken ATC advantage on that, do you have to really, legally speaking, you need to disclose that. Though if you are able to realize it after 5-10 years, maybe one can get by with this, with the realization. But if it's a relatively new ULIP, if it's 4-5-year-old, 6-year-old, I think, look at the surrender charges. Don't exit ULIPs in a half, because many a times, these surrender charges come down dramatically on the passage of a certain time period. So if a ULIP has become 5-year-old, the surrender charges can come down from something like 15% to 3%, but that depends from ULIP to ULIP. The policy framework of every ULIP is different. They are not standardized product. Every insurance company offers its own format of ULIP with its own combination, with its own riders. So take your policy document out from your locker, read it carefully, read carefully the fine print, and look at the section of the surrender charges and the cost of that. And meanwhile, check the investment value of your ULIPs.
This next question is from Sonia. She says she's considering whether to invest in a 1 crore house by taking a loan of rupees 70 lakhs or to invest the rupees 30 lakhs she already has in mutual funds. She says she is 41 years old, self-employed, and already owns one house where she stays with her husband.
I would say that the mutual fund plan looks better. I'll tell you the reasons. Unless there is a special deal which is on offer. If say there is a person, the house is worth 2 crore, and for some unique reason this is a desperate sale and you know the seller, unless there is something extraordinary with that particular transaction where you can also make money, it doesn't make sense, because and there are practical considerations. One is that borrowing money to buy the second house, and the return on that will not be as meaningful. My fear is that the interest that you will incur will not be the rental income from that property. That is despite putting in 30% as your own contribution. That's one. The other is that you already have a house. Third is inconvenience, which is you have to really worry about the maintenance, getting a tenant, and making sure that the house is always occupied by a tenant. That apart, you also have to see that where is the diversification. Here is a 70 lakh rupees borrowing and 30 lakh of your own contribution and a single investment. So it will either work or it will not work. But when it comes to your investments, you will gradually build. And so I don't have a very clear, I'm clear that most people should not consider a property as an investment, but only in extraordinary situations it might make sense. The other reasons which I listed, which is convenience, the ticket size, all those things just make the case more stronger. Invest your money in mutual funds methodically, and if it's a long-term money, I think the returns will be reasonably rewarding. And if you have accumulated this 30 lakh rupees, it's important that you don't invest at one go.
Next up, Ashim asks, what's your opinion about closed-ended mutual funds with downside protection?
Yes, they were permitted by the regulators, the capital protection oriented funds. They are not great funds. They are closed end. The fund company will, and generally the way they are structured is that they are 3 to 5. They have a 3 to 5 year term. They invest 15 to 25% of the money in equity. It is based on the assumption that if the equity money disappears, if the fund manager loses money on that equity money, the 75 to 85% money invested in fixed income over this time period will actually essentially grow to make sure that you break even with your investment, you get your money back. So these are very conservative investment. If you are an investor for the long term, then you should not look at this as an option. You should look at a appropriate asset allocation, maybe a MIP or a balanced fund or an equity income fund or an all equity fund. If you are investing for next 15, 20, 25, 30 years, I would say that start with a balanced fund and then move to a multi-cap fund over the next 3-5 years. Make your investment through SIP. If you have to invest 10 lakh rupees, never invest it at one go. Spread it over the next 15 to 18 months so that you are able to average your investment, benefit from the ups and downs, maybe a big decline. Eliminating the possibility of catching a market high is very important for any starting investors getting started. So these are the cautions, these are the precautions you should take. These are very low yielding, and of course they help you protect the protecting capital is not an investor's goal. It actually satisfies your psychology, and if you are investing for the long run, choose the appropriate kind of fund, invest regularly, and it should prove rewarding.
Moving on, Hardeep asks if there is any difference between investing in mutual funds through the mutual fund utility platform or CAMS, as both offer direct schemes.
CAMS helps you consolidate only those funds which are invested through CAMS. Helps you invest only in those funds which are for whom the registrar and transfer agent is CAMS. Through mutual fund utility, you can invest in more funds. Mutual fund utility also enables subsequent transaction or redemption or consolidating all your statements. Otherwise, from convenience point of view, the CAMS app is very convenient. So investing in the direct plans, they both enable. So I would think that mutual fund utility offers you relatively larger choice, more options. But for most investors, if the funds that you are going to invest in is being are there on the CAMS online, then it's fine. Otherwise, mutual fund utility might provide you more options. That's the only key difference which I can see in them.
This next question is from Rajesh. He asks if you could evaluate PMS against mutual funds in terms of returns, risks, and costs.
Return and risk of mutual fund and PMS will be about the same. They are quite regulated by SEBI, but very differently. The return that you see for mutual fund is in the public domain every day. Everybody's investment is pooled. The key difference is that for PMS, the minimum investment is 25 lakh rupees. That is the minimum ticket size. After that, PMS cannot claim its performance number because the PMS performance is unique to every investor when you invest and when you take out, and every portfolio has to be a segregated portfolio. The PMS fund manager can assume great deal of risk, while mutual funds are very tightly regulated on all dimensions, whether it be calculating NAV, valuing, the valuation, the daily expenses to be charged. Everybody should be charged equally, and the essential regulatory oversight that what should be any position in a company should not exceed 10%. so on and so forth. PMS is a very different ball game altogether. You are buying the expertise of a fund manager, and you are entrusting him complete authority, and he's also able to assume great deal of risk. Many a times a greater reward comes by way of assuming greater risk, or running a thematic fund, running a more concentrated portfolio. So the risk can actually go up or down depending on the strategy followed by the PMS. But simply going by the regulatory intensity with which mutual funds are regulated, the ticket size, the disclosure norms, the transparency, your ability to take your money out, all those things, and somebody like Value Research, which looks at every mutual fund so closely, and we put up information on every mutual fund every evening. We actually collate the portfolio of every mutual fund on our website for every investor to see. So the great deal of transparency, disclosure, oversight, intensity of regulation makes me think that mutual fund is a great vehicle. Some PMS might be good, but PMS performance is a secret, because that is how they are supposed to be, and they are not supposed to be claimed publicly in terms of what they did, how they did relative to what.
Next up, Gurpal asks that for an NRI with Canadian citizenship, where would you recommend him to park his money from where he can invest in equity funds through SIP? He also wants to minimize taxes, Dhiren.
Sorry, I did not really get the first sentence of his question.
So this person is a Canadian citizen, and he wants to know where can he temporarily park his money from where he can institute an SIP into equity funds. And one of his other goals is to minimize taxes.
Minimizing taxes, the tax on, first he should choose the equity fund, which is the destination fund where he wants to invest. And he should invest in the ultra short term fund or the short term fund of that same fund company. And he should initiate the STP, because you can give a standing instruction if you invest 1 crore of rupees or 50 lakh rupees in a liquid fund, and you can give an instruction to the fund company that please invest 2.5 lakh rupees from this investment, redeem every week, and put that into an equity fund every week. So with single transaction in a fixed income fund, you can do your SIP as well, but you will have to pre-decide the destination equity funds, and invest in their corresponding fixed income funds to set up this STP systematic. And this STP is being referred to as systematic transfer plan, whereby a regular amount moves from your fixed income to equity investments.
You've talked about the early mover advantage, Dhiren.
Yeah.
Mr. Sundaram asks, how does he make up for the lost time if he's a latecomer?
I don't know how to make up for the cost, but it's always good to start whenever you get sensitized to it, or whenever you become aware of it. And I would say that the way to little optimize, don't work towards assuming great risk. But many investors, as they get older, they become more conservative. Be conservative to the extent that you provide for the money that you need to consume or spend in an immediate time frame. But assume measured risk. If you are getting started, and even if you are in 50s, it doesn't matter, you still have 8-10 years of working years, or even if you are in retirement, but if you have put all your money in fixed income, effectively your money is going down. Maybe take a part of your money, invest in equity, generate all the money that you are unlikely to need in next 3, 4, 5 years, or for consumption or spending. That should be invested in by assuming measured risk, because many a times people retire and they think that they don't have to take risk, and understandably the risk appetite goes down. You become little less unsure of the markets, or you more so if you have never invested in the past. So the only way to really make up for the lost time in a limited way will be assuming, not be very conservative, assume measured risk, don't take unfettered risk, and and mind you, don't chase performance, don't invest. So don't invest at one go. So initiate these risk management tools, or the methods that you can apply, and take measured risks.
That's all we had time for in today's session,
Thank
Dhiren.
you.
Any closing remarks?
Yes, I keep getting back to this, that start early. It sounds very simple, but it's very crucial, and it is going to be extremely, crucial for the coming generation, which is going to live much longer. And uh, everybody, when it comes to investment, is looking for a trick. No, do the simple thing and do it with great regularity and sincerity. That is all that it takes.
Thank you, Dhiren.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for joining in. We'll be back next week with another edition of Money Hangouts.